That night, in the golden-lit ballroom of the country club, my mother-in-law threw an entire glass of red wine on my dress, and my husband just smiled. I stood still, wiping the drops running down my wrist, then looked straight into the server's camera lens like I was looking into my future. They thought I'd run away in shame. The next morning, I signed the 2-inch thick paperwork, the key to turning a Mineral Springs resort into my revenge stage. My name is Natalie Quinn, and I'm 34 years old. I work as operations manager at Hawthorne and Vale Wellness Group, a position I've held for 3 years now. My husband, Dylan Hart, 36, has the kind of looks that make hostesses at restaurants stumble over their words, sharp jawline, perfect teeth, that carefully tousled hair that costs more to maintain than most people's car payments. He's perfected the art of the dismissive smile, the one that says everything's fine even when the house is burning down around us. His mother, Loretta Hart, 58, reigns over the Bridalwood Women's Association like it's her personal kingdom. She has that specific brand of Colorado wealth, the kind that comes with ranch properties and oil investments, wrapped in Patagonia vests and Tesla SUVs. She never liked me. Not when Dylan first brought me home, not at our wedding, and certainly not now. The fundraiser at Bridalwood Country Club was supposed to be routine. Another Thursday evening in Lakewood's suburban sprawl. Another $500 a plate for some cause Loretta championed. The ballroom gleamed with that aggressive elegance crystal chandeliers throwing light across cream tablecloths. Waiters in pressed whites circulating with trays of Pinot Noir. I was standing near the auction display when Loretta approached. She'd had 3 glasses already, I'd been counting. Her voice carried across the murmur of polite conversation. "There she is," she announced, loud enough for the cluster of women nearby to turn. "My son's charity case. Tell me, Natalie, how does it feel living off the Hart family generosity? Must be nice for a woman with empty pockets." The room didn't go silent that only happens in movies. Instead, there was this subtle shift, conversations continuing but attention redirecting. Phones appeared in hands, held at casual angles. "Loretta," I said, keeping my voice level, "this isn't the place." "Oh, I think it's exactly the place." She stepped closer, her wine glass tilting dangerously. "Everyone here should know what kind of opportunist my son married. A nobody from nowhere, playing dress-up in clothes Dylan bought." The dress, for the record, I'd purchased myself. A black DVF wrap that cost me a week's salary because I'd wanted, just once, to fit into their world without question. "Mom," Dylan's voice came from behind me, not sharp, not defending, just acknowledging. Like she'd commented on the weather. That's when she did it. The glass tipped forward, deliberate and controlled. Not thrown, that would have been too crass for Loretta Hart. Just tilted until the entire contents poured down my chest, soaking through the silk, pooling at my feet. The wine was warm. It smelled like cherries and oak and humiliation. "Oh dear," Loretta said, her voice dripping false concern. "How clumsy of me." Dylan laughed, actually laughed. "Mom just slipped," he said to the gathering crowd. "These things happen." A server, God bless him, had his phone out, recording everything. The club manager appeared with a clipboard, scribbling what I assumed was an incident report. Someone handed me a white towel embroidered with the Bridalwood logo. I pressed it to my dress, and when I pulled it away, the burgundy stain had transferred perfectly to the pristine cotton. Evidence. I didn't cry, didn't shout, didn't give them the scene they expected. Instead, I folded the stained towel carefully, tucked it under my arm, and looked at each face in that circle of watchers, the women from Loretta's book club, Dylan's golf buddies, the mayor's wife, all of them waiting for me to crumble. "Thank you for a memorable evening," I said, my voice carrying the same false sweetness Loretta had perfected. Then I walked out, my heels clicking against marble, leaving wine-dark footprints in my wake. In the parking lot, my hands finally shook as I called my Uber. Through the club's floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see them returning to their conversations. Dylan's hand on his mother's shoulder, both of them laughing at something the club president said. They'd already moved on, confident they'd put me in my place. They had no idea what they'd just set in motion. The drive home took 23 minutes. Dylan made it back in 15. He found me in the bathroom, still in the ruined dress, scrubbing at the stain with hydrogen peroxide even though we both knew it was pointless. "You need to apologize to my mother," he said, leaning against the door frame. No preamble, no concern about how I felt. Just that simple demand. I set down the bottle slowly. "I need to apologize. Your mother poured wine on me in front of 200 people. You provoked her. You always do, with that attitude of yours." He checked his Rolex, a birthday gift from Loretta. "She's upset. The whole thing was embarrassing for her." Embarrassing for her? Just call her tomorrow, smooth things over, tell her you're sorry for causing a scene. I turned to face him fully, wine stain like a wound across my chest. "Dylan, I need you to hear what you're asking. Your mother assaulted me, yes. That's what pouring a drink on someone is called legally, and you want me to apologize." His jaw tightened. "Don't be dramatic. It was just wine." "Then you should have no problem making a public statement about it. Just a simple social media post saying the incident was unacceptable." He laughed, that same dismissive sound from the club. "I'm not doing that. Don't blow this out of proportion. Natalie, you know how these things work. We keep family matters private." My phone buzzed on the counter. A text from his sister. "Maybe if you showed Mom more respect, these things wouldn't happen." Another from his aunt. "Loretta is heartbroken. You should be ashamed." And one from a number I didn't recognize. Someone from the club. "Saw what happened. You handled it with class. She's done this before." That last one made me pause. This wasn't Loretta's first performance. Dylan's phone rang his mother. Of course. He stepped into the bedroom, murmuring reassurances. I caught fragments, "She'll come around," and "You know how sensitive she gets," and "Don't worry, I'll handle it." Handle me. Like I was a problem to be managed. I opened my laptop and pulled up an encrypted folder I'd been maintaining for 6 months. Inside were documents most people would find mind-numbing memorandums of understanding, letters of intent, financial projections. But one stood out: a purchase option agreement for Juniper Ridge Spa and Retreat in Sedona. 42 acres of red rock paradise with natural hot springs and a client list that included half of Silicon Valley's stressed-out executives. The current owners, a couple retiring to Costa Rica, had given me exclusive negotiating rights based on my track record with Hawthorne and Vail. They didn't know I'd left the executive team. I'd kept my minority stake silent, letting everyone assume I'd walked away with nothing. The option expired in 72 hours. 3 days to decide if I wanted to pull the trigger on a $8.5 million acquisition that would change everything. Dylan came back, straightening his cuffs. "Mom's really hurt. She's thinking about uninviting us from the Aspen house for Christmas." "Dylan," I said carefully, "I'm your wife. Does that mean anything to you? When someone physically attacks me, shouldn't your first instinct be to protect me?" He sighed like I was a child asking why the sky was blue. "It's not about taking sides. It's about keeping peace. Mom's family. She's been there since day one. You." He paused, choosing his words. "You need to try harder to fit in." "Fit in," I repeated, "by accepting public humiliation, by not making everything a battle. Look, just apologize, and this all goes away. Mom might even buy you something nice as a peace offering." She mentioned seeing a bracelet at Tiffany's. A bracelet, like I was a pet who needed a new collar after misbehaving. I closed my laptop. "I'm going to stay at Kara's tonight. I need to think." "Don't be ridiculous. You're not going anywhere. What would people say?" "The same things they're saying now, I imagine." I grabbed an overnight bag, throwing in essentials. Dylan followed me through the house, alternating between commands and pleas, but never once saying what I needed to hear: that he was sorry, that his mother was wrong, that he would stand by me. As I reached the front door, he played his final card. "If you leave now, you're making a choice. This family or your pride." I turned the handle. "You're right. I am making a choice. The night air was crisp, carrying the scent of distant snow from the mountains. In my bag, next to my toothbrush and clean clothes, was the wine-stained bridalwood towel. Evidence, reminder, fuel. 72 hours to change everything. The countdown had begun. Kara's apartment smelled like lavender and takeout Chinese. She handed me a glass of wine white this time and pulled up the video on her phone. 3 million views on TikTok, she said. Someone already made it into a meme. When your mother-in-law shows her true colors. You're viral, babe. I watched myself on the small screen, standing perfectly still as Loretta poured her contempt down my dress. The server had caught everything her cruel words. The deliberate tilt of the glass, Dylan's laugh. But what struck me most was my own face, calm, controlled, already calculating. You need to see this comment thread. Kara scrolled down. Turns out Loretta pulled similar stunts with Dylan's ex-girlfriend and his father's former business partner's wife. There's a pattern. I set down my glass and opened my laptop. I need to tell you something. But first, I need you to sign this NDA. Kara's eyebrows rose. Are you serious right now? Dead serious. She signed without reading it. That's trust. Then I showed her everything. 5 years ago, before I met Dylan, I'd co-founded a mineral therapy subsidiary within Hawthorne and Vale. We'd developed a proprietary treatment system combining traditional hydrotherapy with cutting-edge wellness tech. The kind of thing that sounds like snake oil until you see the clinical trials and celebrity endorsements. I'd stepped back from day-to-day operations after the launch, letting my business partner Rebecca take the spotlight while I moved into operations management. But I'd kept my 35% stake and, more importantly, the intellectual property rights to several key patents. Holy shit, Kara breathed. You're worth, on paper, about $12 million, liquid assets, much less. But enough for what I need to do. I pulled up the Juniper Ridge files, property surveys, financial statements, architectural plans for expansion. The current owners had burned through their retirement savings trying to keep it afloat during COVID. They needed out, fast and clean. The purchase option is for $8.5 million, I explained. But that's not the real play. Once I own it, I can integrate our treatment systems, rebrand, and flip it to one of the wellness conglomerates within 18 months. Conservative estimate puts the resale at $22 million. But that's not what this is about, Kara said, reading my face. No, it's about owning something Loretta can't touch. Something she'll desperately want access to. Sedona is her favorite winter escape. Every February, she books the same suite at a resort down the road. Imagine her face when she discovers I own the premier wellness destination in the area. My phone buzzed. Marcus Bell, my attorney, texting from his home office at 11:43 p.m. Reviewed the option agreement. Clean terms. Bank confirmation for proof of funds ready. Need your go-no-go by Monday 9 a.m. Mountain Time. Then, Renee Porter, my financial advisor. Liquidity plan ready. Can move $7 million from your portfolio without triggering major tax events. Bridge loan for remainder approved at 4.2%. This is aggressive but doable. You've been planning this for months, Kara said. I've been considering it. Loretta just made the decision for me. I pulled up another document. This is the fun part. Colorado law considers assault and battery, which includes throwing liquids on someone grounds for a restraining order, especially with video evidence. Once I own Juniper Ridge, I can legally ban her from the property. Any wellness event I host, any conference, any exclusive retreat where her social circle gathers, she's persona non grata. And Dylan, community property state, if I structure this right, using my premarital assets and inherited funds from my grandmother's estate. He can't touch it. I've been very careful about keeping certain accounts separate. Kara poured herself more wine. This is some supervillain level planning. No, I corrected. Supervillain's monologue. I do paperwork. I opened my email and began typing. First to Marcus. Proceed with option execution. Monday 7 a.m. Your office. Then to Renee. Initiate liquidity plan. Wire instructions to follow. Finally, To the Sedona Resort owners, confirming intent to exercise purchase option. Looking forward to Monday's closing. Each send button felt like loading a bullet into a chamber. What about your job? Kara asked. I'll submit my resignation letter effective immediately after the sale closes. Hawthorne and Vale has a generous severance package, and my equity vests fully upon voluntary departure after 5 years. I hit that mark 3 months ago. My phone rang. Dylan, for the 8th time. I let it go to voicemail. You know what the beautiful part is, I said, pulling up the Bridlewood Country Club website. Loretta's on the board of directors there. Has been for a decade. But Bridlewood has a partnership with several Arizona resorts for reciprocal membership benefits. Guess which resort they're currently negotiating with for their new Southwest Wellness package? Juniper Ridge, Kara whispered. Juniper Ridge. And as the new owner, I'll have final say on all partnership agreements. The wine-stained towel sat on Kara's coffee table, burgundy blood on white cotton, evidence of the moment Loretta Hart overplayed her hand. She thinks I'm nobody, I said quietly. Empty pockets, she said, playing dress-up in clothes Dylan bought. She's about to learn that sometimes the nobody you humiliate on Thursday becomes the somebody who owns your favorite destination by Monday. Marcus Bell's office occupied the 32nd floor of a downtown Denver high-rise, all glass and steel with views of the Rockies. At 7:15 Monday morning, we sat around his conference table, Marcus, Renee, and 2 associate attorneys who specialized in asset protection. First things first, Marcus said, sliding a folder across the mahogany. Your premarital assets are ironclad. The trust your grandmother established is designated as separate property, and you've never commingled those funds with marital accounts. Dylan has no claim. What about the appreciation on those assets? I asked. Also separate, since you've maintained distinct investment accounts. You've been remarkably disciplined about this. Renee pulled up her laptop. The $7 million is ready to wire. The bridge loan documents are here 4.2% interest, 18-month term, no prepayment penalty. Your debt-to-asset ratio stays healthy even with this leverage. Now, Marcus leaned forward. Let's discuss the protective measures. I've drafted a cease and desist letter regarding the assault at Bridlewood. If Loretta attempts any contact at your new property, we document everything. Pattern of harassment strengthens our position for a restraining order. The younger associate, Jennifer, spoke up. I've researched precedent. Arizona courts are very protective of business owners against disruptive individuals. Once you establish that she's interfered with your business operations, even once we can file for a commercial harassment injunction. What about Dylan? I asked. When he finds out about the purchase, Marcus pulled out another document. Post-nuptial agreement template. If you want to stay married, which I don't recommend, but that's your choice, this establishes the Sedona property as entirely separate. He'd need to sign. Obviously. He won't. Then we pivot to divorce proceedings. Colorado's no fault, but the documented assault by his family member, combined with his failure to protect or support you, plays well in settlement negotiations. I signed where Marcus indicated, initialing each page. I want something else in the cease and desist, a demand for public apology within 10 days, posted on her social media accounts. If she refuses, we pursue civil litigation for assault and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Jennifer smiled. I like that. Puts her in a box, apologize and admit wrongdoing, or face a lawsuit with video evidence. Renee's phone chimed. Wire confirmed received by escrow. We're officially in motion. Marcus stood, straightening his tie. The Sedona team is expecting us on their video call in 40 minutes. You'll sign remotely. Documents will be notarized here. And by noon, Mountain Time, you'll own Juniper Ridge. One more thing, I said, pulling out my phone. I need you to review this. I showed them the draft of my resignation letter to Hawthorne and Vale, effective immediately upon the close of sale. Clean, professional, with gratitude for the opportunities provided. No mention of my silent equity stake or the patents I retained. Smart. Marcus nodded. Keep the IP separate from this transaction. That's your long-term play. The morning sun climbed higher, casting sharp shadows across downtown. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see Bridlewood Country Club in the distance, nestled in its suburban enclave. Loretta was probably there now, holding court at her Monday morning tennis group, telling her version of Thursday night's events. "There's something else," Jennifer said, pulling up her tablet. "That viral video, it's been picked up by several influencers focused on toxic in-laws and family dynamics. The narrative is solidly in your favor. Loretta's getting dragged in the comments." "I don't care about internet strangers' opinions," I said. "You should," Marcus interjected. "Public sentiment matters if this goes to court. Judges are human. They see the same social media everyone else does." My phone buzzed. Dylan again. This time a text. "Where are you? This is ridiculous. Mom's willing to forget everything if you just come home." Willing to forget. Not forget. Like it never happened. Like the stain wasn't still visible on that dress hanging in Kara's bathroom. "Reply to him," Marcus advised. "Keep it brief. Tell him you're handling some business matters and we'll be in touch soon. Don't mention the purchase yet." I typed, "Taking some time to think. We'll reach out when ready." His response was immediate. "Don't do anything stupid." Too late for that warning. I'd already done the stupidest thing possible in his world. I'd refused to play by their rules. "All right," Marcus said, opening his laptop. "Let's make you a resort owner." The escrow officer appeared on screen. Documents ready. The sellers, a kind-looking couple in their 70s, smiled from their attorney's office in Phoenix. They had no idea they were handing me a weapon disguised as a wellness retreat. "Ms. Quinn," the husband said warmly, "we're so pleased someone with your background will be taking over. The place needs fresh energy." Fresh energy. If only he knew what kind of energy I was bringing. "I promise to honor what you've built," I said, meaning it. The resort itself was beautiful, deserved better than being a pawn in my game. "I have big plans for Juniper Ridge." The notary positioned her stamp. "Sign here, initial here, and here." Each signature felt like drawing a sword, each initial like testing the blade. By 11:47 a.m., it was done. $8.5 million transferred, deeds recorded, keys virtually handed over. I owned Juniper Ridge Spa and Retreat. Marcus shook my hand. "Congratulations. You're now legally empowered to ban anyone you want from your property." "Let's hope it doesn't come to that." I lied. The invitation was a masterpiece of manipulation. Cream cardstock with rose gold embossing. The Juniper Ridge logo subtle but unmistakable at the top. Kara had helped me craft every word to be irresistible to someone like Loretta Hart. Dear Hart family. In the spirit of new beginnings and family harmony, you are cordially invited to an exclusive preview weekend at Juniper Ridge Spa and Retreat, Sedona, Arizona. Experience our signature mineral spring treatments, private yoga sessions, and farm-to-table dining before our grand reopening. This intimate gathering is reserved for select guests who we hope will become part of the Juniper Ridge legacy. Please join us this Thursday through Saturday for what promises to be a transformative experience focused on wellness, renewal, and reconciliation. Private transportation can be arranged from Phoenix Sky Harbor. With warmest regards, the Juniper Ridge Team P.S. This invitation extends to immediate family only. Business casual attire is recommended for our evening gatherings. I had them hand-delivered by courier Tuesday afternoon 1 to Loretta's house, 1 to Dylan at his office. The response was almost immediate. Dylan called within an hour. "What is this? Some kind of peace offering?" "Something like that," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Your mother mentioned loving Sedona. I thought a weekend away might help us all reset." "Since when can we afford a weekend at Juniper Ridge? That place is $800 a night minimum." "I have connections through work, professional courtesy." He paused, suspicious but tempted. "Mom already RSVP'd, yes. She's calling all her friends, bragging about the exclusive invitation." Of course she was. Loretta could never resist being first to experience something exclusive, especially if she could lord it over her social circle later. "Will you come?" I asked. "Do I have a choice?" Mom insists. She says it's the least you can do after embarrassing her at the club. I bit my tongue until I tasted copper. "I'll see you Thursday then. The retreat has a dress code. Please remind your mother that respectful behavior is expected at all times." "Don't start, Natalie." "I'm not starting anything. I'm ending it." He hung up, likely misinterpreting my meaning entirely. Wednesday. I flew to Phoenix, then drove the 2 hours to Sedona myself. I wanted to arrive alone, to walk through my property before the performance began. Juniper Ridge sprawled across 42 acres of red rock and juniper forest, with natural hot springs bubbling up through rust-colored stone. The main lodge was Frank Lloyd Wright inspired, all horizontal lines and organic materials. 28 private casitas dotted the landscape, each with its own soaking pool. The staff gathered in the main conference room, 42 employees who'd stayed loyal through the ownership transition. Elena, the general manager, had worked there 15 years. "I know you're all curious about the new direction," I began, standing at the head of the sandstone conference table. "First, no one is losing their job. In fact, I'm increasing wages 20% across the board, effective immediately." Surprised murmurs rippled through the room. "Second, we're implementing new standards for guest behavior. Zero tolerance for harassment, verbal abuse, or," I paused deliberately, "throwing beverages on anyone. Any guest violating these standards will be permanently banned, regardless of their social standing or connections." Elena raised her hand. "What about the preview weekend? Your assistant mentioned VIP guests." "Very important guests. Yes, they'll help us test our new policies." I pulled up the security protocols on my tablet. "I need our best security team on duty. Document everything. If anyone becomes disruptive, especially in the boardroom where we'll be hosting Friday's signing ceremony, follow the removal procedures exactly as written." Thomas, the head of security, studied the documents. "This is very specific. Are you expecting trouble?" "I'm expecting accountability," I replied. "Something that's been in short supply lately." I handed Elena a folder. "These are the room assignments. The Heart Party gets the turquoise suite and the adjacent jade casita. Stock them with our finest amenities. I want them to experience everything Juniper Ridge has to offer." "Including the private boardroom?" she asked, reading ahead. "Especially the private boardroom. Have it set up for a formal signing ceremony Friday at 2 p.m. Mountain Time, legal documents, refreshments, the works." "What kind of signing?" "The kind that changes everything." Thursday morning arrived with a spectacular sunrise painting the red rocks gold. I stood on my private balcony, the owner's residence, tucked away from guest areas, and watched a convoy of black SUVs wind up the drive. Loretta had brought reinforcements. Dylan, of course, but also his sister Patricia and his Aunt Margaret. The Hartford Women's Auxiliary, assembled for what they believed was a weekend of free luxury. From my vantage point, I watched them emerge from the vehicles. Loretta wore designer athleisure that probably cost more than most people's mortgage payments, already directing the bellhops like she owned the place. She had no idea that in less than 24 hours, she'd be escorted off this property forever. I pulled on my blazer professional but not trying too hard and prepared to greet my guests. The wine-stained bridalwood towel sat folded on my desk, waiting for its final curtain call. Time to spring the trap I'd baited with luxury and the promise of reconciliation. The lobby of Juniper Ridge smelled of white sage and cedar, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the Sedona red rocks like living art. I waited by the reception desk, watching my guests arrive with the confidence of people who'd never been denied entry anywhere. "Natalie." Loretta's voice rang out, performatively warm for the staff's benefit. "What a lovely surprise. Though I do hope you've learned to dress more appropriately for such a setting." I wore a simple black sheath dress, nothing that could offend her sensibilities. "Welcome to Juniper Ridge, Loretta. I hope you'll find everything to your standards." She swept past me toward the check-in desk. her entourage following. We'll see. I've stayed at every premium resort in Sedona. This one's always been adequate. Elena appeared with practiced professionalism, iPad in hand. Mrs. Hart, we have you in the turquoise suite. As requested, your welcome amenities are already in place. I didn't request anything. Loretta frowned. But I suppose it's the least you could do after that scene at Bridalwood. Dylan approached me while his mother harassed Elena about thread counts. You look good, he said, as if that might erase everything. This place is incredible. How did you swing this? I told you. Professional connections? Right. He glanced around, calculating. Mom's already planning to book her women's retreat here next spring. You might have actually done something smart for once. For once. I smiled, tasting the irony. Patricia, Dylan's sister, wandered over, her phone already documenting everything for Instagram. The lighting here is perfect. Natalie, take a photo of me by the fountain. I obliged, knowing these would be the last photos she'd ever take here. By evening, they'd settled into their routine of luxury consumption spa treatments, poolside cocktails, yoga on the red rocks. I joined them for dinner at the resort's restaurant, where Loretta held court. You know, she said, cutting into her elk tenderloin. I've been thinking about what happened at the club. The table went quiet. Dylan shot me a warning look. And I asked. And I think you overreacted. A little wine never hurt anyone. In my day, women knew how to handle themselves with grace. She sipped her Cabernet, the irony not lost on me. But I'm willing to move forward if you've learned your lesson about respect. Respect, I repeated. Yes, I've learned quite a bit about respect lately. Margaret, the aunt, chimed in. Family is about forgiveness. Natalie, sometimes we have to swallow our pride. Swallow, I said. Interesting choice of words. Friday arrived cloudless and bright. At breakfast, I made the announcement. I've arranged something special for this afternoon. 2 p.m. in the private boardroom. A presentation about Juniper Ridge's future that I think you'll find illuminating. Corporate nonsense. Loretta waved dismissively. But I suppose we should humor you since you went to all this trouble. I spent the morning ensuring everything was in place. Marcus had driven up from Phoenix with the final documents. The security team was briefed and positioned. Elena had the boardroom set up like a stage leather chairs around the massive oak table, documents at each place setting, the Juniper Ridge logo projected on the wall. At 1:55 p.m., I stood at the head of the table, watching them file in. Loretta took the seat of honor. Naturally. Dylan sat to her right, Patricia and Margaret flanking them. They looked like a tribunal, ready to pass judgment. Elena entered with a silver tray. On it sat a folded white towel, the Bridalwood towel, wine stain still visible despite professional cleaning. What's that? Dylan asked. Evidence, I said simply. Or rather, a reminder of why we're here. The former owner's attorney entered an older gentleman named Richard Winters, who'd agreed to stay for the formal transfer announcement. He cleared his throat. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here today to formally acknowledge the transfer of ownership of Juniper Ridge Spa and Retreat. Loretta laughed. Transfer. What does this have to do with us? Richard continued, unperturbed. As of Monday, September 1st, at 11:47 a.m., Mountain Time, full ownership of this property transferred to Ms. Natalie Quinn. I finished, standing. That would be me. The silence was absolute. Loretta's face cycled through confusion, disbelief, and finally, rage. That's impossible, she hissed. You don't have that kind of money. Marcus entered on cue, setting down a leather portfolio. Mrs. Hart, I'm Ms. Quinn's attorney. I can assure you, the sale is complete, legal, and irrevocable. Your daughter-in-law now owns every square inch of this property, including, I added, pulling out a printed document, the right to establish and enforce a code of conduct for all guests. I slid the paper across the table. Section 3, Subsection 2. Any guest engaging in harassment, Assault, including throwing liquids on another person or other disruptive behavior, will be permanently banned from the premises. Dylan stood up so fast his chair tipped. Natalie, what the hell is this? I said, touching the stained towel. Is accountability? You're lying. Loretta's voice cracked. This is some kind of sick joke. Elena stepped forward with an iPad. Mrs. Hart, I'd like to introduce you to our new owner and CEO, Ms. Quinn. She's asked me to share something with our senior staff and board advisors. She touched the screen. The conference room's display flickered to life, showing the video from Bridlewood Country Club. There I stood in my black dress as Loretta poured wine down my chest, her voice crystal clear. My son's charity case, a woman with empty pockets. The timestamp glowed in the corner. 7 days ago. Turn it off, Dylan demanded. No, I said. Your mother wanted an audience that night. She's getting one now. The video continued Dylan's laugh, his casual, "Mom just slipped." The crowd's hungry phones recording everything. When it ended, I let the silence stretch. That woman, I pointed at Loretta on screen, assaulted me in front of 200 witnesses. That man, I pointed at Dylan, stood there and smiled. So, yes, I bought this resort, cash deal, clean transfer, and now I'm exercising my rights as owner. Thomas, the security chief, entered with 2 of his team. They positioned themselves by the door, not threatening, just present. Loretta Hart, I said formally. You're hereby banned from Juniper Ridge and all affiliated properties for life. This includes any events, conferences, or gatherings hosted here. Her face went purple. You can't. I can. I did. And if you refuse to leave voluntarily, you'll be escorted out and formally trespassed, which becomes a matter of public record. Patricia jumped up. Natalie, this is insane. It was just wine. Just wine. I pulled out Marcus's folder. Arizona Revised Statutes, Section 13-1203. Assault, including intentionally placing another person in reasonable apprehension of imminent physical injury. That's a Class 1 misdemeanor. Marcus stepped forward. Mrs. Hart, you're also being served with a civil complaint for assault and intentional infliction of emotional distress. You have 30 days to respond. He placed the papers in front of her. Her hands shook as she pushed them away. Dylan, she turned to her son. Do something. Dylan's jaw worked. Natalie, you've made your point. Let's discuss this privately. Privately, I laughed, sharp and bitter. Like when you asked me to privately apologize for being publicly humiliated. No, this is public. Your mother wanted an audience. She gets one. This is our marriage you're destroying, he said. No, Dylan. You destroyed it when you chose your mother's ego over your wife's dignity. I pulled out another document. Speaking of which notice of legal separation, the divorce papers will follow. Margaret stood, clutching her pearls. You ungrateful little stop. My voice cut through her building tirade. Margaret, you're welcome to stay through checkout tomorrow, but if you continue, you'll join Loretta on the banned list. She sat down, mouth gaping. I turned back to Loretta. You have 2 choices. Sign this public apology I've drafted acknowledging the assault, taking responsibility, and I'll consider not pursuing criminal charges. Or refuse, and we'll let the courts decide. I'll destroy you, Loretta whispered. I'll tell everyone what kind of vindictive bitch you are. They already know, I said, gesturing to the paused video. 3 million views, remember, but they also know what kind of woman you are. The kind who attacks someone for the crime of marrying your son without your permission. Thomas stepped forward. Ma'am, I need to ask you to gather your belongings. We'll escort you to your vehicle. Don't touch me, Loretta shrieked. Dylan, are you going to let them do this? Dylan looked between his mother and me, calculating. Always calculating. Mom, maybe we should go. You're taking her side. I'm taking the side that doesn't end with you in handcuffs, he said flatly. The truth of it hung there. He wasn't defending me. Even now, He was just choosing the path of least resistance, least embarrassment. Mr. Hart, I said formally, you're not banned from the property. Yet. But your privileges as a spouse are revoked. That includes access to any areas restricted to ownership. Elena pulled up her tablet. Shall I process the checkout for the Hart party? Just Mrs. Loretta Hart. The others can stay if they choose to follow our code of conduct. Patricia grabbed her purse. I'm leaving with Mom. That's your choice, I said. But Patricia, that Instagram story you posted an hour ago, the one calling this place paradise, might want to update it. She fled, followed by Margaret. Dylan stood frozen, still processing. $8.5 million, he said quietly. Where did you get $8.5 million? From being smarter than you gave me credit for. From not being the charity case your mother painted me as. From 5 years of building something while you thought I was playing secretary. Loretta was being escorted toward the door, Thomas's team maintaining professional distance while ensuring she kept moving. At the threshold, she turned back. This isn't over. Yes, I said, meeting her glare. It is. The boardroom emptied except for Dylan, Marcus, and me. The silence felt heavier than the red rocks outside. I walked to the window, watching the security team escort Loretta to the parking area. She was gesticulating wildly, probably threatening lawsuits she'd never file. $8.5 million, Dylan repeated, still stuck on the number. You had $8.5 million and never told me. You never asked, I said. You assumed. Your whole family assumed. Poor Natalie. Grateful Natalie. Charity case Natalie, who should be thanking her lucky stars she married into the Hart dynasty. Marcus placed the divorce papers on the table. Mr. Hart, I'd advise you to get an attorney. This is a preliminary filing, but given the circumstances, Dylan laughed bitterly. My wife just ambushed my mother. Your mother assaulted me, I corrected. You watched, you laughed, you asked me to apologize, so I bought a resort instead. I picked up the pen, the same Mont Blanc I'd used to sign the purchase agreement, and signed the separation notice. Each letter of my name felt like reclaiming something stolen. The financial disclosures are all there, Marcus said. The resort is Mrs. Quinn's separate property, purchased with premarital assets. You have no claim to it. Dylan's phone buzzed. Then again, and again. I knew what was happening. The video was making rounds again, this time with updates about Loretta being banned from Juniper Ridge. The court of public opinion was in session. You planned this, he said, from the moment she spilled that wine. No, I said. I planned this from the moment you smiled while she did it. Elena knocked and entered. Ms. Quinn, the 3 o'clock presentation for the Bridalwood Partnership Committee, should I cancel? No, I said, watching Dylan's face change as he processed the implications. Let them know the new ownership is very interested in discussing terms, with certain conditions about member conduct. Of course. You're going after the Bridalwood Partnership. Dylan stood. That'll humiliate her. All her friends are on that committee. Then she should have thought of that before she humiliated me. Marcus handed Dylan his copy of the papers. You have 72 hours to respond to the separation filing. I'd also advise your mother to take the apology deal. The video evidence is compelling. Dylan looked at me one last time. I loved you. You know. No, I said quietly. You loved the idea of me. The grateful wife who'd never challenge your mother, never outshine your family, never be more than what you allowed me to be. He left without another word. Through the window, I watched his BMW follow the security vehicle escorting his mother off my property. My property. Marcus gathered his files. The restraining order paperwork is ready if she violates the ban. She will, I said. Loretta Hart doesn't accept being told no. Then we'll be ready. He paused at the door. You know, in 20 years of practice, I've never seen someone turn assault by wine into resort ownership. She said I had empty pockets, I replied. Turns out they were just deep enough to hold $8.5 million and a grudge. After he left, I stood alone in my boardroom, in my resort, surrounded by the red rocks that had witnessed centuries of stories. The wine-stained towel still sat on the table. I picked it up, feeling the rough texture where the wine had set. Elena returned. "Ms. Quinn, the staff would like to know, are we proceeding with the full rebrand, everything?" I said. "New vision, new standards, new era." And Elena add a line to our marketing materials. "Juniper Ridge, where respect is our foundation and accountability is our promise." She smiled. "Yes, ma'am." "Oh, and the video of Mrs. Hart being escorted out. Someone already posted it. The caption says, 'When you throw wine at someone who can buy the whole vineyard?'" I walked to my owner's suite as the sun began setting, painting the desert in shades of gold and crimson. In my hand, I still held the stained towel, my reminder that sometimes the best revenge isn't served cold. Sometimes it's served at exactly 2 p.m. Mountain Time in a boardroom you own, with legal documents and security guards, wrapped in the kind of poetic justice that money can definitely buy. My phone buzzed with a text from Kara. "Just saw the news. The Queen has been dethroned. Long live the new Queen." I typed back, "No Queens here. Just a business owner with a very strict code of conduct." The last text was from a number I didn't recognize. I almost deleted it, then read, "Ms. Quinn, this is James Morrison from Bridalwood's board. We'd like to discuss our partnership proposal, without certain previous committee members present." I smiled, pouring myself a glass of wine, white, not red. Tomorrow. There would be lawyers and logistics, permits and partnerships. But tonight, in my resort, watching the sun set over my 42 acres of desert paradise, I raised my glass to the woman in the wine-stained dress who'd refused to apologize. She'd bought herself an empire instead. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where in the world you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story of sweet revenge resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Have you ever had a moment where you chose success over surrender? I'd love to hear about it.